This is Spectrum.
Alternative medicine, homeopathy, secret society, hypnosis, the paranormal, alternative energy, UFO, abduction, the weird, the wild, and the wonderful.
With your hosts, Tom Theophanis and Scott Jordan.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Spectrum Radio Network on BBS Radio 2. I'm Scott Jordan, here my co-host, Tom Theophanis. And remember, there's no such thing as too much information. Hey, Tom, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, Scott?
Doing good. Who do we got tonight?
Well, tonight we have Elaine Douglas, who has been a researcher since the mid-'80s, and she's been a 25-year member of MUFON. For many years, she was MUFON State Director for Washington, D.C., and for the past 12 years, she has been the MUFON State Director for Utah. Elaine is the editor of the Journal of Abduction Encounter Research, which is an email quarterly magazine on UFO abductions. And in the 90s, she was an organizer for the group Operation Right to Know, which held street demonstrations protesting the UFO secrecy. She holds a master's degree from MIT in military policy, and she now lives in Utah, and she's a self-employed as a marketing consultant. Well, welcome, Elaine.
Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm real glad you guys are interested in MUFON because, MUFON's got a lot of problems right now. We're talking about the Mutual UFO Network, UFO Research Organization, and big problems in MUFON at the present time.
Okay. Before we get into that, maybe we could go to a little bit of history. What got you personally involved in this area?
I don't have a dramatic story in that vein. In the mid '80s, I was driving in my car and I heard an interview with Bud Hopkins. And like a lot of people, I was interested in UFOs when I was an adolescent. Mm-hmm. And then I forgot all about them. And then I heard this interview with Bud Hopkins. I was so astounded. I got into UFO research and studies, and since then it's just been every single day.
Really?
From then to now, every single day.
That's a long time.
So how did you get involved with MUFON, and was it like from the beginning, more or less?
Yeah, MUFON was one of the organizations that was prominent, MUFON, and then there was a couple other organizations, and the thing to do was join MUFON, so that's what I did. And, that was in the old days when we had paper, we did our reports on paper. You filled out your report and you mailed it in.
Yeah.
Now we got a computer. Big improvement. Right. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yes. Tom, you had experience with that as well, being the sitting director for MUFON Ontario. Having to send all your reports into the States, which he wasn't.
They did.
Wasn't too thrilled with.
Wasn't too thrilled about that either. Well, because back in those days, they were demanding all our information and including any evidence that we had, and I'm assuming the same thing applied to you, Elaine. Did it not? Oh,
you mean the paper? Well. You see, the thing about it is we got a big improvement now. We got a computer system, and it seems like a big improvement until you start to reflect on how easy it is to get all the information out of a computer. If you even if you're not supposed to.
Yeah, and people's personal details and information on. Yeah. So what is the difference between you obviously see some difficulty with MUFON today?
Well, MUFON, membership is half of what it used to be, and they claim they're almost broke, and that's the reason. But the real problem now is MUFON's credibility is in tatters. I mean, they made an alliance in 2009 with a Las Vegas businessman named Robert Bigelow.
Okay, tell us that story. How did that come about?
Yeah, basically, he was going to give them well over $500,000 to put in, and they got half that money. They got half of that money in the period that they worked with him. But what they did was they put the entirety of MUFON at his disposal. He had access to the computer system, and he had. They started paying established a rapid response team called the STAR team, which could get to UFO sites quickly.
Right.
And so he had them working for him, and he had access to the computer system, and he also had undisclosed backers. And,
so
yeah,
wasn't transparent.
And according to James Carey, and the former director of MUFON, he had undisclosed backers, and it's done terrible damage to MUFON's credibility and its reputation. I mean, it's we at the Committee to Reform MUFON, which is who I'm representing tonight.
Right.
We believe that there's no way to repair the damage to MUFON's reputation, and it may go deeper than its reputation. I mean, the things people suspect about MUFON may be true, and there's just no way to fix it unless the organization makes big changes. And that the major change we want to see them make is that they have a board of directors, 9 people that have been there forever, and they are self-appointing. And we want to have democratically elected board of directors. And see, the thing about MUFON, you guys, MUFON is really very important. And MUFON is the way that anybody who wants to know can find out what the phenomena is doing in North America, because of the huge network that MUFON has with the public. If they see anything happens to them, they fill out a report. They make hundreds of reports every month, go into MUFON, and through those reports, if we could get all that information, which increasingly it's becoming clear that we're not getting the information.
Right.
And that's the problem. But the thing is that the ability to know what the phenomena is doing is really, really important. Where it is, how it's appearing, how people are perceiving it. We need that information. And the public needs that information, since there's no other way to get it. The press isn't going to provide it.
Right.
But Elaine, when you were the director back in the 90s, let's say, were you able to get any information from the head office, and as far as other cases, or did you get any help from them in any way?
Are you talking about some particular era?
Well, I'm talking
back in the
90s.
From the 90s up.
Well, see, in the days of the paper forms, before the computer, we all understood that the forms, the reports all went to Walt Anderson. He put them in a file cabinet, and a few of them would get published in the MUFON Journal. But nowadays, with the computer system that MUFON has, it's less and less understandable why all the reports are not coming out. And one of the things that happened in 2 months ago was 4 state directors were fired and 2 assistant state directors, which, it was a purge. These are senior people included, and I was one of them.
Right. Now, do you have any information on what they said the reason was? Well, now, what they said and what the reason will be 2 different things, probably. But what was their reasoning? Well,
you see, preceding my firing, in the month before that, I had sent him a bunch of emails to the higher-ups in MUFON, and I was going on and on about why does MUFON publish all these raw reports? A raw report, for anybody who's listening, is a report. When the public makes a report, they type in what they think they saw, and that's what we call a raw report. And what MUFON does is MUFON sends an investigator out to interview that person, and we have a way of refining the information and organizing it so that it becomes very presentable and understandable, and it's checked and so on, and that's a finished report. That's an investigative report. And I was going on and on in these. I sent 4 emails in So why are we publishing all these raw reports? And why aren't we publishing the investigative reports? That's our product. You know, and the thing about MUFON is, you know, you wonder when MUFON does things that don't make sense, you might not be sure whether it's just incompetence or it's by design. All right?
Right.
And you ask yourself this over and over again.
Right.
Looking
So,
back,
I mean, what they could do, because it's a computer I mean, they have the files on computer. There's governments all over the world now releasing their UFO files. You would think the leader of that pack of releasing files would be MUFON.
Right. You would.
I mean, they could monthly release all the files that came out. So I see what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't they do that? What is the reasoning? So you sent them a whole bunch of questions saying, hey, guys, let's get on the bandwagon with the rest of the world that's releasing their information and do it ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then I got off on another subject, and I'll try to make this quick. But it's kind of important.
Don't. To give us any details you can.
Important. If you go to the website, the MUFON website, you hit the button that says Report a UFO. That's for the public. Now, at the bottom of this form, there's a checkoff box that you can check that says, if it's okay with you, Mr. John Q. Public, that MUFON releases your information, your contact information, and the substance of your report to, quote, third parties unaffiliated with MUFON. Third parties unaffiliated with MUFON, unquote. Check this box. You know, now, most people check that box. And so that became one of my other questions that I was badgering them with. What's this? I said, what's this? Who is this third party unaffiliated with MUFON? All right. Now, in looking back in retrospect, at that time, I did not know what that represented. Now I know. That's Bigelow. You know, the Bigelow that's supposed to be gone. The Bigelow that was supposed to... The contract is ended, we hear. You know, Bigelow is no longer part of MUFON, et cetera. But somehow that's still on there. That's the conduit to Bigelow. It's still on there. And here I was asking about it. And
that does seem like a bit of a cluster. You know what I mean? Because it was a contract, and I read the contract. It was a lengthy contract. He buys all of their past information, all the database, any future stuff that come out. Ended up they got like 385,000 of the 600 and something thousand that they were supposed to pay, and then it went went by the wayside. But the point is, you're saying that information is still going there. Well, that's still on the intake form. Now, that contract, by the way, that was sent to us sub rosa. We don't know who sent it to us, because we never would have got it from the board of directors of MUFON. You know, we don't have a right to any information. So, but somebody sent us that contract, and the committee to reform MUFON put it out. And, you know, it's kind of an eyebrow raiser. I mean, everybody knew Bigelow was involved with MUFON, and they knew he was paying for the STAR team. But it's another thing to see it in print, you know, just the exact terms. And so there... So, okay, so we're progressing through the story here. And when we went through this purge, you know, I went through it, and everybody that got fired was a senior person in MUFON. There was 6 people fired all at once. You know, I guess they thought we wouldn't notice. We're all supposed to just crawl away with our tails between our legs. You know, and these are all people that were asking similar questions.
Well, you know, one of them was really asking similar questions, even more than me. And she was a 41-year member of MUFON, in charge of a very successful state Colorado, a 41-year member, just fired off with her head, you know. And they don't tell you why you're fired. They just send you a one-line email that says, in my case, it says, we discovered your misconduct. Now, there wasn't, I was not guilty of any misconduct.
Right.
But you see, there's no appeal, there's no process, there's nothing. they want you out, you're out.
Right.
And so
they may just as well send you an email that says "sucks to be you." See ya.
Yeah, right. Exactly right. Exactly right. So you see, as a result of that was just the kind of overt manifestation of the thing. So we put together our petition, which we're calling for a democratically elected board. We're calling for due process in all personnel matters. And we're calling for them to do some fundraising, some legitimate fundraising. You know, we don't want any more of this dirty money from people like Bigelow. We want them to go to New York and Hollywood and the foundation world and get up off their rear ends and do some real fundraising. So that's in the petition.
Right.
And, so there, you know, now the thing about what the Bigelow contract did, it tore MUFON apart. Is the first thing it did was break the trust that people have. You know, they start asking themselves, who really is Robert Bigelow? You know, who are his unseen backers? Is he really an intelligence asset? And of course, nobody knows. You know, but
the question is raised.
Right, exactly. And once it's raised, you know, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And so that's the first thing, the problem. That now the next thing is with the creation of this STAR team. Now, what I've come to realize in the last month, after getting past the surface, see the overt things, I've come to realize that the important thing in understanding what may be going on in MUFON now is the STAR team and CMS. CMS meaning the Case Management System, or MUFON's computer. But, okay, still looking at the surface.
Right.
We're still on the surface now. This STAR team divided MUFON into two classes, you know, the haves and the have-nots. Divided where you had these elite STAR team investigators who got all the good cases, everybody feels, and everybody else, all the regular investigators, they got all the what they call lights in the sky.
Right.
Not important cases.
That's the ones where you have to go out and explain to people, sir, I'm afraid what you seen there was Venus.
Well, there's a lot of lights in the sky that are not Venus. But you see,
or satellites or anything, you know, it could be anything. Who knows?
I always liked the lights in the sky myself. You know, I liked all the cases I investigated. But a lot of people feel that the lights in the sky are not worth having, and so you had to be on the STAR team to get anything else but lights in the sky. I mean,
but Elaine, let me ask you something. When this STAR team is supposed to go out to investigate something, who would give them this information?
Well, you see, the system works. All the reports come in through the website, and then they would go to dispatchers who at that time were paid, and they would rank the cases into three categories: Category 3, 2, or 1. And if it was Category
but wait a minute.
3 cases, would go to STAR team.
Yeah, but before they get that information, for instance, if you had that case, if the case came to you, like from your own area, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you dispatch your people first before it goes to any of the other MUFON folks?
No. It goes into MUFON's computer, and it goes into MUFON. MUFON Central.
Right after that, before even anybody investigates anything?
Yeah, and they would dispatch it to the states. If it was a Category 1 case, a lights in the sky case, it would go to the states. You get an email. You're the state director. You sit at your computer. You get an email. It says you got a new case. All right. But
maybe that's why they never got nothing from me.
What?
Because even back in those days, I never done that. Never once. Like if a case came, our people went out, we investigated, whatever results we had, we passed it on. That was it.
Right.
Yeah.
You never allowed them to come and appear in our woods and do our stuff.
That was before MUFON was divided into two classes of people. The have and the have not.
Even now, I wouldn't have done that. So the people themselves right now, you know, they should not have done that kind of approach, because if the information comes out to you and it's something that's in your own area, why would you pass the information to them right off the bat and let them take over?
Well, the public sends in the reports.
Okay, that's a different story. If it came directly from the public, but if it came, let's say, something to your attention, your team would go out, would it not?
Yes. In other words, if it came to me personally, not through the computer.
Right. Okay.
That is correct. That is correct. And occasionally that will happen.
But
that
did you guys,
also.
did your local, like when you were the state director there, did you guys have like a phone number for the local area that you guys were working in?
Yes, I do here where I am. And I don't think we did in Salt Lake City, in the big city in MUFON, because unfortunately, but I would occasionally get a case directly to me. That's correct. That is correct. But you see, you have to look at the bulk of the activity. The bulk of the activity will come through people coming through the website. The MUFON website, report a UFO, and they type their report. So all right. So the other thing that happened in MUFON, we got these two classes of people, and we got all this friction. But the thing that started to happen that is so puzzling is the culture of MUFON started to change. A very unprecedented things started happening inside MUFON. Authoritarianism. The leadership, they started with this order giving, a monumental rudeness, bullying. We got directors of this and directors of that. We got rule books. We got flow charts with elaborate chains of command, and everybody carefully ranked who reports to who. Things that we never saw in MUFON before. And then we got things that you had to sign, forms. One is called the at-will agreement, saying MUFON can fire you anytime they want for no reason. Then we got another form to sign, and this turns out to be kind of important, a background check form, where you would tell MUFON that you would sign this form and you would give MUFON carte blanche to investigate you, and MUFON, the terms of this, it's all spelled out in the form. It said if MUFON got anything wrong or made any mistakes, that they weren't responsible for it. And not only that, but you couldn't inquire. That form is still in use. Now, you're not allowed to inquire what MUFON may have discovered about you. And so this thing, MUFON started to act like it was a police agency.
Yeah, it does sort of sound like that. It sounds like sounds a bit like an operation.
Yeah, this stuff is all up and running. All right. Now, in the STAR team, they got a non-disclosure form. And this, you got to know exactly what this really means. That if you are going to sign up for the STAR team, the elite corps, okay, then you are going to sign a statement that says that anything you learn in an investigation, you will never reveal. Okay? Never reveal.
That's
never.
insane. That sounds like you're signing up for the CIA.
That's right. That is right. That is right. And it's, I call it the gagged for life. In other words, if we thought, go back to MUFON's mission, the mission of MUFON, and for the benefit of humanity, that's the mission. The mission of MUFON. The mission of MUFON is to collect UFO information, analyze it, and report it to the public. That is the mission of MUFON. All right? But here, we're going in another direction here. And the form says that you can't tell your wife. You go out on the case for the STAR team, you can't tell your wife. It says if you do, and the words are immediate disciplinary action.
Wow.
Just disciplinary.
What are they going to do? Take away your card? Take your official card away.
That's exactly. And they do it right and left, okay? They take away your field investigator status is what they do.
And how would they find that out, if I may ask?
Well.
Yeah, I mean, how are they going to find out you told your wife?
It says in this form, you're not allowed to write. Now, 90% of people who get into UFO research, that's exactly what they want to do, is write. They want to research and write their findings. No more. Not if you're on the STAR team. You're not allowed. It says right here in this agreement, you're not allowed to write anything. You're not allowed to talk to the press. Everything you collect, all the information you collect is, quote, the property of MUFON. All right?
And in turn, back to Bigelow.
We're trying to figure out where this stuff really comes from. And, of course, then we get purges. See, inside MUFON today, there is a climate of fear. You could be fired at any time. And people had a big investment in MUFON, like I did, 25 years. Like the state director of Colorado, 41 years. You don't want to be fired. You want to stay in MUFON and continue your work. And in MUFON today, there's a climate of fear. And, purges. We get purges. And I was purged in December and January. After I was fired, I wrote this letter to Clifford Cliff, the international director. I said, Dear Cliff, let's see if I understand this. The accused is not informed of what the charges are against her. She's not allowed to confront her accusers. She is not questioned as part of the investigation. She's not allowed to know what evidence was presented against her. She's not permitted to defend herself. And in the end, she's convicted, and she's not told what she's convicted of. That's what it's like when there's no due process. And so, let me give you another example. This is so silly. A fellow named Steve Reichmuth was the chief investigator of Northern California for MUFON. He has almost 300 investigated cases in CMS, in the computer system. He was given a form to sign saying he would never, in all future time he remained in MUFON, contact anyone above his rank.
Wow.
Now,
okay, where in the world would people come up with this stuff? MUFON is supposed to be an intellectual organization, an investigative organization. It's not the Army.
It sounds like military. That's military. That is pure military thinking.
Absolutely. And it's
do not question.
But wait a minute. Isn't MUFON a charitable organization?
Yes.
Okay, so how can you have a charitable organization being run in that fashion?
Right.
Isn't it against the law for that matter? As a charitable organization, you can go to the state or wherever the registration is and take out their status.
Yeah, especially if they're demanding the secrecy acts that you have to sign.
And not to mention the fact that if Bigelow paid that money, did he get it as a write-off? Because if you're a charitable organization, you're giving out receipts. Yes?
Yep. Yeah, he probably got a tax write-off.
So if you got a tax write-off, which is probably what he was looking for anyways, because that's what these folks would like, then it cost them basically hardly anything. And
a $385,000 tax write-off.
Yeah, for them is it's a drop in the bucket. So
and all of the history, all of the files of MUFON that have existed since the day it began, every file, every case, every name, every little bit of collected evidence, be they soul samples or anything, it's all part of the package. Owns it all. Right?
Yeah, but how is that possible for a charitable organization to be able to do something like that?
Doesn't make any sense, does it?
So those are the kinds of questions we're asking now. See, the Committee to Reform MUFON, now that we're free, because I mentioned this climate of fear. See, I believe, I told you before, prior to me getting fired, I was writing to the higher-ups in MUFON asking them these questions. Why are we publishing all these raw reports? And why is this stuff on the website that says third parties unaffiliated with MUFON. See, they don't like to hear that. They don't like you to ask those questions, because if you do, they will fire you. See, that's the point. That's how they hold. That's how they. And now that I'm not in MUFON anymore, I'm screaming like a stuck pig.
Right.
You see, because MUFON is carrying itself as though it were a public agency backed by the force of law. That is the way it's conducting itself. That's the persona that it's presenting. And it is absolutely bizarre.
So tell me something. When these letters were going out that you had to sign, I expect that you had to sign some of these letters. Was there a lot of people saying, I'm not signing this? What are you, crazy?
They sign it right and left.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, except for a few people who don't. And then if they don't, they get fired. Okay.
Right. So there was the carrot and the stick without the carrot. Man.
See, there's no mechanism for the membership. They have no control over the board.
Yeah, but
board of directors.
How was this thing set up from way back, even when Walt Andrus was there, if I remember correctly, that the board, who was picking the board?
Prior to 1982, prior to 1982, there was a provision. See, MUFON being a corporation, it has a corporate documents, and they specify.
So somebody has to be able to be picked.
Right. Now, before 1982, there was a provision in there permitting the election of the board. The members would vote on the board. Now, in doing some research, I found that was not observed. It was in there, but it wasn't observed. And so in 1982, they changed it. And now the board is self-appointing. In other words, the board says who's going to be on the board. Nobody votes on anything.
So the elites choose the elites.
That's right, exactly. We have no control over what the board, who's on the board or what they do. None whatsoever. And not only that, but there's no chance, and I'm not exaggerating this, okay, when I say there's no chance for a normal, ordinary member of MUFON to be on that board. No chance. And they will tell you to your face that there is no chance, because to be on that board, you have to give MUFON money.
Oh, right? Okay, so there's money involved.
You have to.
Well, that's a little odd. I mean, that doesn't sound like a free and open charity society.
Well, no, it's right against the rules of a charity. So if they actually have a charter, right, you can go to the state or wherever the registration is and pull their charter, because they're going against the proper business conduct.
Yeah, that would. Now I don't know. So what is happening now? You are trying to get a hold of. You got some people, and you're trying to reform. Are you trying to reform MUFON under the name MUFON, or are you trying to start something new because the name MUFON has been sullied so much? It's it's not going to happen. Which way are you going with that, Elaine? What are you doing now? Well, we've lost her, I think.
I think we may have lost Elaine.
Oh, that's okay. It's interesting, though, Tom, isn't it, that the way it's going? This reminds me a little bit, and I remember telling this story earlier today, about how an organization is infiltrated.
Well,
some people come with some money, and then they'll say, here's a big bunch of money, but we need somebody on the board. Then they'll do that again. Here's some more money, but we need 2 people on the board. They keep throwing money into it, and then keep putting people on the board until, guess what? They run the board. It sounds a little bit like what's happening.
Well, I remember back in the 80s and 90s, because again, it's a volunteer kind of thing, right? So finding enough volunteers to be on the board, which would give you a whole lot of work to do. And Walt Andrus, at that time when I got involved, Walt Andrus was in charge, and like Elaine mentioned, basically all the information was going in his house, and it was just a big pile of stuff.
Right.
There was no real organization per se. And, in those days, like in any kind of charitable organization that you belong to, certain individuals have to be, doing it from the heart in order to be able to take over that kind of a job.
Well,
And,
I mean, they're volunteering their time freely, right?
Yeah, but the description that we're hearing now, of course, is totally different, and now it's being run as a, one of these private corporations. It seems they're creating all kinds of control factors.
Well, they're running it like a small country, a dictatorship. I mean, let's be real. It's being run as a dictatorship now.
And I don't quite understand why people would go along with it.
Well, tell us a little. Well, you broke away in 1993, so tell us about that.
Well, I mean, again, for the similar reasons. At the time, we were trying to, they were looking for their information to them. I think Elaine is calling me right now. Well, I don't want to get dead air in here, but I think we're going to have to. Yes, we lost you there. Yeah, Donna's going to try to get you. Yeah, hang up.
Oh, the wonders of live radio.
Live radio, yes, sir. On the internet, nonetheless. So going back to that, they were making big demands at the time that all our information should go to them, and
you said no.
We didn't get anything in return. No, and I said no, we're not giving you. I mean, I'm willing to share. You give me some of your info. Yeah, sure. I'll give you some of mine, but I'm not, going to give you all our information and then, let it go in that deep cave and end up nowhere.
Right. That was the problem. I mean, you were getting nothing in return. And there was a good group here in Ontario busting their butt, exactly. checking out all the cases and, talking to the people and taking the reports and dead ends and interesting cases. So I don't know what the heck was going on there, but they wanted all the information and give nothing in return. So
well, this is it, and at the time when we refused, they started to sort of threaten to get rid of us or change us or whatever, and excommunicate us. But so we told them in no uncertain terms that we didn't care. so we changed our name slightly and we moved on.
Right.
And of course they didn't like that very much at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we first started up, we got an email from the current person who's running MUFON saying, you can't use the name MUFON. Yeah. Bite me.
Exactly.
It's Ontario MUFON. Completely different name.
Completely different name, yes.
Yeah. Ontario MUFON, different world.
Well, it's unfortunate that the only real, big enough name organization to in this field, that was left over in the last, dozen years has gone in the direction that it has, because there isn't, all the smaller groups kind of,
they folded. Yeah, they folded over time.
Or, and right now, they were the only one that, made any kind of difference, I suppose. And it's really sad to see what direction it has taken right now. Yeah,
I don't know. So I don't know if I'm going to get Elaine back, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. I find it interesting that, and you've heard the rumors over the last 20 years about MUFON being infiltrated. It's been said for the last 20 years, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, personally,
I don't know whether that's the case, but
whether it is or not, the individual members, should definitely stand up and do something about that. Because, I mean, me as an individual, if I was a member and, this is the kind of style of approach that they're taking. I wouldn't stand up for that, and maybe that's probably the reason why majority of their membership has gone, over the last few years.
Well, I mean, yeah, they've lost a lot of the members, but also I think that you don't have the sort of coverage you used to with the cases. The cherry picking that happens now. The case has to be up in bright shining lights before anybody will send out to look into it. It's the shortage of people as well. There's not enough people, really. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the subject has changed too because, over the last, dozen years or so, the internet has grown and majority of the people, have become armchair critics, rather than, whereas before, it was mostly individuals that would go out and look after the particular cases.
Right.
Now there's very few people doing that sort of thing, and
Well, the people are very busy making YouTube commentaries.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. They've never investigated a case in their life, but boy, they got an opinion.
Yeah, everybody has an opinion. That's the whole trick in this, And unfortunately, the as technology changes, it creates that kind of a understanding out there. So, over the years, I had hoped that there would be a lot more people getting involved physically, to go out there and find out what all the stuff is and, create a better, sort of understanding and put out the information. But even back in those days, a lot of people would take information and then they keep it to themselves like, it was like gold.
Yeah.
They'll put it in their safes and hide it, and it was like theirs, and nobody else could get that information because it was secret.
Right, which is what MUFON was doing. They were having all.
Well, yeah. Like I said, everybody was doing that. Unfortunately,
yeah.
And then unless you have a change of mentality, and then that's the biggest problem. I think that the folks in the UFO field, for the last 20, 30 years has been that. There's a lot of infighting, there's a lot of arguing, a lot of, but nobody has gotten together as a real team that have a good understanding of how the information should be disseminated out there and put out to the public and to the media and so on. And probably most of that is because, most of the folks in this area are laymen. We don't have the experience.
That's true.
Well,
there's a lot of people out there that have been doing it for a long time, and what they do is, if new people come in, they were willing to give up their time freely. You would take them on cases and show them exactly how you interview people separately. You take the information down. If there's any other separate witnesses, you have to talk to them separately. If there's any soil samples, there's a procedure in how to gather that soil sample. What lab it's got to go to, how long it's going to take to get that information back. There definitely is procedure. It's not just that,
and MUFON had, a training manual and all that kind of stuff that they gave a procedure, which was good in that degree. But like I said, the field in itself was very disorganized and still is. It hasn't really changed that much.
Right.
Because there's no too many professional people that understand how it should be run. And most of the folks, like I said, they'll volunteer, but what expertise do they have in running a business? There'll be the odd person here and there, but overall,
right,
there was nothing there.
Right. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get Elaine back.
I don't know.
Hopefully, she's Dawn's trying to get a hold of her. It's okay. That'd be a shame. I was really looking forward to finding out whether she's going to if there's going to be a new name, or whether you're just going to, do what you did and separate from MUFON. You did that in 1993. You separated completely.
Yeah.
Changed the
well,
name.
I think what she's trying to do, and what they're trying to do, I should say, is to change the current MUFON, and by doing a petition